How's everyone doing? Good. Welcome to the talk. So tonight we continue with the Heart Sutra. We haven't gotten too far. Basically the first sentence. And this is the fifth talk. We're going quite deep into taking apart that sentence, the significance and the methods of practice with regard to each word. So last talk I spoke about the five skandhas, which are form, sensation, perception, volition, consciousness. This is what constitutes a human being. How many of you have never heard the word five skandhas before? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. Five skandhas. This is basically the Buddhist analysis of body and mind. Right? What constitutes body and mind? We normally think of ourselves as constituting body and mind. Mind inclusive of consciousness, of spirit, all the experiences that we have, including our memory and so on. The Buddhist analysis is more of not a stagnant body and mind, but more of a process-oriented way of looking at the functioning on a phenomenal kind of appearance level, observable way of analyzing what constitutes a human being. Right? And the reason for that is addressing the problem of suffering, anguish. So the lines that we've covered so far is when the Bodhisattva, I spoke about that, Avalokiteshvara, embodiment of compassion, perceive that was coursing in the deep prajna paramita, transcendent wisdom, coursing, practicing, perceive that all five skandhas are empty, thereby transcending all suffering. So you could say the whole Buddhist project really addresses this notion of suffering. And the antidote to that is to understand why we suffer. Why is it that we suffer? And the solution is, the answer is the reason why we suffer, which is different than physical pain or sensation. The suffering that we feel comes from a deep-rooted assumption, identity, kind of instinctual reification of all of our experiences, assuming that there's a center, assuming that there's a self that experiences that. Now, this may seem to some of you as quite commonplace. Of course there's a self. It's me. I'm the one experiencing. And that is precisely what the Buddhist teaching is addressing. Right? What is that assumption based on? Is it grounded in some concrete evidence? very recently, I discovered one of my students. She's experiencing great suffering because her husband has been going in and out of the hospital for some time. But 2 days ago, he went into the hospital for something quite serious, mostly because of his circulatory system. Blood circulation clogging up the arteries. And he's experiencing that in the neck, in the leg, and also in the process of, that's why he went into the hospital. And then they discovered that one of the arteries of his heart is not functioning quite well. So that may have something to do with just the whole circulatory system. They've been married for decades. It's very difficult. He's fully conscious, but he's having these surgeries done. They're putting stents to open up the artery. But he's getting up there in age. They've been married for decades. And the wife, my student, is experiencing suffering because she's facing the mortality of not herself really, but her husband, someone else. It's very difficult. I told her, I reminded her of the practice to always face everything we experience, embrace them, whatever that may arise. Work with them, and bring yourself to be at peace. So, facing, embracing, working through or transforming, and being at peace or being free from anguish. These fourfold stages, they're not really linear, but they're reciprocal. The more we face, the more we will be able to embrace. The more we embrace, we discover more things that come up, the deeper layers of our assumptions and so on. Part of the reason it's hard, and this goes with all of us, is because there's a history. There's a history there. I'm sure she wouldn't suffer that much if she's just observing a stranger. Maybe, of course, she may feel suffering, identity, feel bad. But it's her long-term partner and the possibility of saying goodbye. And behind that is years and years of memory of the joys that they've had, things that they went through, their marriage, raising kids, history, that identity of the other in relation to me. So you could say that suffering, well, I just mentioned that the suffering comes from this deep-seated assumption, reification, that what lies at the center of our experience is a sense of me, I, mine, self. The self is relational. Right? It's not separate. Relation to everything that we experience, everyone that we've loved or interacted with. And the most importantly, there's a history to that. Right? And because of the illusion of the history, ours to days, to weeks, to months, to years, to decades. Just as when we see pictures of ourselves, when we're 2, 3 years old, we say, oh, that's me. Right? But the body size, the cells, every aspect of that person have some resemblance to us, but it's completely different. Completely different. Mental states, knowledge, intelligence. Right? But because of that history, that relationship in time, that's how the deep-seated, reified assumption comes into play. That's what makes it hard. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. We take many things for granted. We take many things for granted. We've gotten so used to the illusion of our experiences, we take it for granted. The illusion of the experience, for example, in order to function, operate in daily life, our neurological synaptic firings in the brain when we perceive something temporarily as a byproduct of this experiencing visual, what we see creates a kind of, in order to function, navigate in daily life, the brain creates as a byproduct a subjectivity. Right? That I'm over here and all of you are over there. Right? As long as there's no lesion in the brain or you're not on drugs, which is possible, that sense of, like, people maybe take LSD, they feel hand can go right through the wall, or the visual experience is completely morphing into one another. But as a byproduct, the brain creates a subjectivity. Me, I, mine here, and all of you are out there. But this is really it's just a byproduct, but in time, hours, to days, to weeks, to months, to years, and decades and decades and decades of living. We have mistaken the byproduct purely from a functional perspective to be something actually concrete, identifiable. The sense of me, I, mine. But from a process perspective, it's just this miraculous functioning of form, sensation, perception, discrimination, judgments, labeling, comparison in a linguistic context, action on the basis of that volition, and cognitive processes. 5 skandhas. In each of these 5 skandhas, we really can't find something permanent, identifiable, something called me. And hence, suffering is dismantled. Anguish. dis-ease that we feel. If you really think about it, really examine the way when we are feeling bad, when we are feeling angry, feeling sad. If you really observe that, not be in that vortex of experiencing, but just standing back and just observe that, processing. Me. I'm sad. That lies at the center. So the Buddhist analysis and contemplation, resolution to suffering, is to deeply examine closely what is this self, what is this I, mine, me. Once that is thoroughly dismantled, not only intellectually, but experientially, just like Avalokiteshvara, suffering transcendent. Suffering transcendent does not mean we have no feelings. The Five Skandhas still continue their miraculous functioning, moment to moment to moment. But that grasping, that reification is freed up. So we're able to face it, embrace it, work through it, and be free from it. The suffering of your partner, suffering of other, or your own suffering. Does that make sense? I want to talk about contemplation. How do we actually contemplate? But before we do that, it's necessary to examine what falls outside of the Five Skandhas in this processual experiencing. Is there anything that falls outside of the Five Skandhas in our experiencing, in our existence? So learning about Buddhist contemplation in this context, we have to kind of ascertain through personal experience what these five skandhas are and their function. Form, for example, is anything obstructionable. Anything obstructionable. Contact. And it's spoken out in terms of four elements, the great elements that defines form in terms of this body. Right? Earth, water, fire, and wind. Solidity, fluidity, warmth, and wind, movement, breath. Is there anything outside of that in terms of the body? What about the nervous system? Form. Bodily liquids, phlegm, liquid, water, fluidity, that's their nature. The sense of heat. As long as you're alive, you have bodily heat. And motion, breath. What about sensation? Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. That's the three type. Nothing falls outside of that. We may have a complex of feelings and sensations, a combination, but that combination exists sequentially. from one instant to the next, to the next, to the next, like link chains. They cannot be two simultaneous sensations. You may feel that it's simultaneous. That's because the speed with which it's happening is so fast they feel simultaneous, but it's actually sequential. Right? Pleasure and pain. Or neutral. Perception. The symbolic functioning of the mind based on language, visuality. Right? Its function is to discriminate, demarcate, label, compare, discriminate. That aspect of the mind. And then volition. Volition is kind of like contrivance, action taken on the basis of our perception. On the basis of our perception. Right? This is good, we label it good. This is bad, we label it bad. I don't want it bad, I want good. But whether something is good and bad, we bring our own baggage of perception according to what we label. Right? Sometimes people have different judgments, different experience. Right? So the action that we take through body, speech, and mind, that's volition. Right? But it's also that impulse. It's also that contrivance that propels us, the all-including volition. And consciousness, basically cognition. Cognition that exists in the previous three: sensation, perception, volition. You can't have sensation, perception, volition without consciousness. Right? The cognitive function that allows things to happen. Right? And consciousness itself is also connected to form. Right? You can't have consciousness without form, without the body. Right? All the sense organs, the eye organ contacting, you have eyeballs, the retina and the occipital cortex, contacting sense object, visual object, giving rise to that moment of consciousness. So, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, like that. But Buddhism recognizes the sixth consciousness, mind as a faculty itself. Mind as a faculty itself can contact its corresponding object, which is just thoughts. Right? The object of mind is thoughts, symbols, visuality, or whatever. And it's deeply connected to the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, but not necessarily. It can exist independently by itself. For example, you can have a dream. You can dream of a tiger chasing you. It doesn't actually have to be a real tiger. Right? And you can have perspiration. You can sweat. You can have nightmare. And you can have fear. So it doesn't really need the first five sense organs, right, to give rise to that moment of cognition. So the cognition based on the mind faculty is contact with the thought. You know, can be independent. So all of these things is just a miraculous functioning in each of them, in each of the experiencing, freshness of each momentary experiencing. We can't find me, I, mine. what we find is relationships and change. This assumption of me, I, mind that lies at the center of experience actually doesn't need to be there in order to have the experience. You can function perfectly fine. You can function perfectly fine without assuming me, I, mine. It's just the natural interplay between the sense faculty, sense object, giving rise to corresponding cognitive moments. Suffering comes from the assumption in that process of me, I, mine who's losing someone. It's a very self-referential experience. You ever seen people, have you heard of people when we encounter someone who's dying and they're very sad, they're very upset and they feel, how can they leave me? It's a very instinctual way of expressing that. Self-referencing. Is the love that we have for our partners, people that we care about, the separation, the pain of separation, is the love lost? No. The relationship actually continues. The relationship continues. Even if one person is no longer physically there, the relationship that you have continue to evolve. And it changes. Do you believe that? Yeah. Yeah. So there's continual newness. Is there such thing as lost? Is there such thing as separation? You may say, well, I can't give the person a hug anymore. Right? I can't give the person a hug anymore. You have never given a person a hug. Hug is made up of non-hug. The notion that you have given a person a hug is a byproduct of me, my friend giving a hug. That's actually a byproduct. What is actually happening is your form, tactile sensations, generating through the nervous ending signals that goes to the brain that has never existed outside of your skull. It has never touched the world directly. It has never experienced the world directly. It has never known the world directly. It's only information. And information can totally be wrong, by the way. It's only information that is ever experienced, have had, is just synaptic firings to the nerve endings coming through and processing. And the perception of that. Oh, pleasant. Good, I really like that. Same hug, same hug. Someone forced you to hug someone really annoying. The body is the same. The body is the same. It's doing that hug. It's touching. Because you labeled it annoying. It's miserable, isn't it? How many of you have experienced that? It's miserable. Right? And, that perception and that resistance to the impulse, to the action, the volition. Right? Everything is happening sequentially in a process filtered through this assumption of me, I, mine. In that labeling process. Actually, you can dream of hugging the person and you can still feel pleasant. Even the person passed on. You can feel the love. Is there something lost or not? So now, this matter at hand comes down to what is the self? What is this me, I, mine, that's suffering? What is it? Analytical ruminations, discursive thinking about it won't help. It's just blabbering. So you need direct experiential contemplation. To free yourself from suffering. This is called contemplation of the emptiness of self and others. That's the first rudimentary layer. The second layer of contemplating the five skandhas is to contemplate the phenomenal characteristics of the skandhas, the aggregates, these five aggregates themselves. These aggregates are also called dharmas, which just means dharma not in terms of teaching. Dharma in this context, it means phenomenal appearance. Themselves are empty. First, emptiness of self and others, a deeper layer of contemplation. From the Mahayana perspective, it is emptiness of dharmas. To overcome this false assumption accumulated through history, taking things for granted, built up through habits. Oh yeah, it's a picture of me as a toddler. Yeah, it's me. This person I've been married to for decades. It's my partner. The first type, contemplation of emptiness of self and others, dismantles attachment to this false notion of self. The second type of contemplation, emptiness of the dharmas, emptiness of the five skandhas themselves, is the contemplation of true emptiness, wondrous existence. It's called. the next talk, tonight's talk. Let's talk about the self. So, what lies at the center of our experience? In the contemplation, it's very difficult to observe this when we have a scattered mind, right? Because we're distracted. And perception is fragmented. So we have to contemplate after we have gained some modicum of concentration. So the observation can be steady enough to observe. Observing what? We have to first familiarize ourselves with the Five Skandhas, the workings of the Five Skandhas. For example, observing form. If you're sitting, we talk about sitting, and we can talk about moving about in daily life. Right? So, form. What is form? You remember? 4 things. Earth, water, fire, wind. Nothing falls outside of that, which just means solidity, fluidity, fire, heat, and breath, air, breath, right? Earth, water, fire, wind, breath. So when we are sitting, we have to familiarize it first. So the first stage is just familiarizing with embodied experiencing of the reality of this body sitting. It doesn't involve thinking. It doesn't involve fabricating anything, constructing anything. Just experiencing. Experiencing is the most raw functioning of the mind. The minimal fabrication, right? It's just a moment to moment we're experiencing. Don't add anything to it. Just allow it to just experience. So what we're experiencing is when we're sitting, solidity. Like you're sitting now. How do you know you're sitting? Sitting is just a word. Right? Chinese is 坐. If you never learn it, you don't know what 坐 is. Japanese, 座って. German. Anyone speak German? Setzen. Huh? Setzen. Spanish. Anyone? What is it? Siéntate. Yeah. If you never learn it, it doesn't mean anything. It's a construct. The actual experiencing of solidity, earth element, you can experience it. Just observing it, staying with it, which just means availing yourself to it. Just open yourself to what is actually present now. And then very easily you also start to notice what? The air, wind. There's motion. There's all kinds of motion. You think you're still. There's all kinds of motion. The wind element. And you'll start to notice heat, warmth. If one part of your body is kind of cool, you'll know. Even if you stay within one area, you'll start to sense heat. For example, you'll notice the breath coming in is actually cooler. At some point, it becomes warmer. So there's temperature shift. If you sit in a room that's cool, you will start to feel the temperature. If you sit like this, in this posture, versus sitting like this, you'll definitely feel a temperature shift. When the body is more compact, the energy travels smoother, generating heat. Right? So when the body is not connected, when it's connected like this, you generate heat. One circle, this other circle, the legs are folded. Right? The tongue, like we teach, the roof of the mouth, one more connection, so the energy travel. So your body will heat up. That's why when we sit in meditation, the temperature in the room that we adjust is actually cooler than normal. Because when you sit, you'll be warmer. If you sit like this, your hand will be cooler. So we feel solidity, we feel heat, we feel wind, and we will feel fluidity. Right? How many of you have sat and you experience saliva accumulating in your mouth, right? Start to feel that, right? Water element. So if you so that's just in this simple act of sitting. It's not thinking about it. It's very different. Thinking. You're contemplating. In Buddhist language, contemplation, it's direct observation. It's not about thinking. There's no words and language. It's like the difference is like this. Like if I'm rubbing my back of my hand, I don't have to think about it. It's just sensations. All I have to do is just avail myself to experiencing what's happening. Does that make sense? So when you're experiencing the four elements, the form in the five skandhas, you're just experiencing, availing yourself to the embodied experiencing of the elements during their wonder, doing their own thing. In this form, where is the me, I, my? If there's really a controller, the self, you should be able to control it. You can't. You don't even need to. Everything does it automatically. Right? It's just the body doing its own thing. And it continues to change. Even when you observe, when you first sit down, you experience the solidity. And when you continue with just this one aspect, just the earth element, your sense of solidity will change. You may become lighter. Your hands may disappear. Your body is so relaxed and grounded. It's as if there, as if not there. How many of you have experienced that? Right? So, how can something that's as if there, as if not there is a self? So you sometimes there, sometimes not there? That means it's impermanent. Of course, in the contemplation, we don't actually think about that. We just direct experiential observation. Quiet in the mind. Don't distract ourselves with words and language, comparison, judgment, memory, and just embody the experiencing. And when we're up and about, all the movements of the body, that's wind. The feel of heaviness, the feel of warmth, the experiencing of solidity. All of that, constantly shifting. Under different circumstances, it changes. That's the first stage, which is just familiarizing ourselves. Let me move on to sensations. How do we even know the solidity, fluidity, warmth, and wind? Sensations, feeling, this tactile sensations. And there's a valence to it. Very subtle, but it's always present. Each moment. We may not be aware of that. It may not register because our mind is usually distracted. But there's always a feeling tone to the sensation. Always. Even in dream. And it doesn't fall outside of three. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So when you feel solidity, for example, sitting, it's pretty good, relax, I'm doing a good job. Sitting. There's actually a slight tint of pleasantness. Now once your legs start to have pain, that feeling tone will start to shift, right? Same solidity, or maybe different. When you have pain, your body will feel heavier. So familiarizing form and then familiarizing sensations in stillness and in activity. Just sensations. And in the sensations, this shifting of pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, according to circumstances, continue to change, morph into one another. And next is perception. We do the same. That is the overlay that we project onto every one of our sensations. It's like the glasses that we wear. The glasses that we wear to look at things. We always have glasses on. Perception, change. Whatever's to our benefit, whatever we've learned, the labels, the judgments, the discernment, discrimination, the comparison, so fast, continually, moment to moment to moment to moment. Sit back and just enjoy the ride. Like the Delta CEO says every commercial, sit back and enjoy the ride. Just watch it. There's no owner. There's no ownership to the perceptions. It's just automatic. Driven by, or contaminated by whatever that's happening that comes up, how we feel. Mostly by our feeling tones. Mostly. If something is unpleasant, you can pretty much bet whatever you label that thing is not going to be so good. Right? So it's dependent. When you feel good about someone, they can bump into you, they can slap you, you feel pleasant. You know, you feel this teasing, like you're a young kid playing around. There's some stranger come on, hey, how are you? It's like, what? You want to fight? You know? It's mediated. The way we judge, the way we discriminate, the way we relate, label things so fast. Also, familiarize with that project. From moment to moment. This projection. And the impulses that we have on the basis of that. That's volition. Right? That's volition. Consciousness, you can observe that too. How to observe that is to understand the tripartite experience of sense organ, sense object, and that moment of cognition. Right? It's moment to moment. So separately observe them, familiarize them. That's the first layer. And then, secondly, contemplate them all together. You could just contemplate one at a time. If you contemplate one at a time and you get a very deep understanding of how things are working, like your sensations or your perceptions of things, how that's so fluid and so not reliable, independent of how you feel, how you want things to be. You will understand no self. If all these truly belong to you, why don't you have control over it? You see? Who is it then? Who is it? What is it? What is it that's animating this? What is this experiencing? It's moment to moment. Experiencing may be vague, so we can break it down. Break it down to experiencing form, sensation, perception, volition, or that relational cognitive processing of how things emerge. So one at a time, go very deep, or all of it together. All of it together, it's just like in this moment now, the seeing that you have of this Guo Gu, right? The seeing. What is this experience right now? Don't get caught up with the object of saying Guo Gu out there, but revert your mind inward as you experience Guo Gu or another person. It's just this experiencing. Where everything is happening by themselves. Right? The things that come up, the labeling, the perceptions, the experiencing. Right? There's a hollowness to that. It's like a movie playing here. Except there's no movie player. It's just this moment to moment. happening. So, in each of, but what is concretely you're able to experience, observe, is change. No ownership. Very important. Change, no ownership. Doesn't mean it's bad. Right? Change could mean just moment-to-moment freshness. Moment-to-moment freshness and connectedness. Unfolding. Right? You're with a dying person or someone who's very sick. Instead of experiencing that self-referentially, what you experience is moment-to-moment unfolding of the presence, of that connection. You put yourself out of the picture. You're completely present to that person. Right? And so it's not necessarily bad. So, first quality is change or unfolding. The second quality is kind of freshness, connectedness, the experiencing, aliveness. There's a potency in that. If we suspend our habit tendency of injecting a self where there isn't one, baggage, the memory, the assumptions, and very difficult, I know. But if we just allow that to fall away and just experience, there's a connection. And that energy of the sadness, which can only arise, sadness, that suffering of sadness, I should say, the suffering can only arise on the basis of the assumption of me, I, my. When that is suspended, kind of allow it to kind of fall away. There's love present. There's connection. So love and mortality, love and death are intimately connected. I'm explaining love in terms of connection. Right? That kind of openness, vulnerability. Right? It could be tears, sadness. Is pervaded by the connection. Right? As long as we don't overlay that with a story of loss. Loss is an idea. It doesn't actually exist. If we stay in the present, it's just the unfolding, the connection. I'm going to call it love. Right? Suffering transcended. Suffering only exists on the basis of grasping, me, I, my. It's a very self-referential experience. So that's how to dismantle self. That's the contemplation of the Five Skandhas on the first level. Emptiness of self and others. I know emptiness of self and others doesn't sound too pleasant, Doesn't sound too positive. Emptiness sound like, you just got done talking about love. The emptiness of others, it doesn't mean what it sounds like. Because all there is love and connection. There is no othering. There is no selfing. So in that presence, it's just connection. That's why. Emptiness of self and others. It's not like, oh, you're empty. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you again. You're empty. It doesn't mean that. That's still othering. Does that make sense? That requires contemplation. Requires suspending our overlay thinking, rumination, discrimination, words and language. Just feel. Expose. Just experiencing what is actually present. Without allowing me, I, mind to come into play. What I'm losing, what I'm gaining, having, lacking, success, failure, existence, non-existent. So, loss is transcendent. Separation transcendent. That's how to face. Truly face. Embrace. Work through. Let go. Getting back to the beginning of what I was talking about. The beginning of the talk. That my advice to my student, this talk I'd like to dedicate it to her. She's not here. She's at the hospital. We'll send her the video. Later on she'll see. Connection and love. And the unfolding of that. Impermanence. Change. There's a lot of freedom in that. Even when there's sadness, there's no need to inject a self in there. There can be sadness. In the sadness, there's connection. There's unfolding. There's love. Right? So it's not that we become stoic, like no feelings anymore. I'm contemplating emptiness of self and you. That's disconnect, So the happiness and joy is still there, but there's no more injecting in that. Kind of solidifying this byproduct of subjectivity. Take that as some kind of permanent thing. It's just a byproduct of how the brain neurologically functions. We need that. We need that. Otherwise, we'll be running into walls. We wouldn't know how to function in daily life. That's not what the problem is. The problem is we've mistaken the byproduct to be some kind of solid thing that doesn't change. Everything that you have, you experience, is in relation to everything else. You're made up of everything else. Your views, your opinion. What else do we think is that define us? Your experience. Everything. Everything. Five Skandhas. Continually unfolding. Okay. That's the first layer. That's the contemplation. Right. First layer is familiarizing the parameters of the five skandhas, understanding how they work. Second is just to observe them, either one at a time or all together. There's a hollowness to that experiencing. There's no need for you to be present. Everything functions perfectly. But in that absence, hollowness, there's presence. To be present to someone is to be absent. This of me, I, mine. So in that hollowness, what is actually present is just the embodiment, the sensations, perceptions, volition, consciousness. And the most prominent trait in that experiencing is change, freshness, and connections. That's how to contemplate the Five Skandhas. If you were to explain to someone how to contemplate the Five Skandhas from tonight's talk, would you be able to summarize? Yeah? How many feel confident? One? Come on. Two? Okay. Yeah. Right. First, familiarize with what we're talking about. What is form? What is sensation, perception, volition, consciousness? One at a time. And then just experiencing. If you have a lot of wandering thoughts, you gotta calm that down. Be more concentrated. And then just so that there's not too much chatter. So you can actually experience. Just witnessing what is actually present. Right? And in that, there's this hollowness. Just function. It's just phenomenal appearance. Phenomenal appearances, characteristics. What I've been talking about is just characteristics of the Five Skandhas. Characteristics of solidity, fluidity, heat, warmth. Right? These are characteristics. Phenomenal, observable. Same thing with sensations, perception. They're mental, but observable. Does that make sense? So we're dealing with something very concrete here. So behind that, in that functioning, it's just this wondrous connection and functioning. And there's a hollowness to that. But if you, it doesn't stop there. If you go deeper, there's this unfolding. Hollowness, one feature. Second, change, unfolding. Third, connection. Connection. Right? Everything's connected. The person's response with your response. Your experiencing of this person as begin to not be so separate from you. It's just this connection. Even on the elemental level of form, earth, water, fire, wind, there's this mutual reciprocal experiencing of that. Everything, this whole universe, is just this four elements. Your four elements, my four elements, just this four elements. Right? That connection. So once you suspend the rumination, the overlay, what you experience is just this. Right? And that interplay, the miraculous, wondrous interplay of sensation, feeling, and perception. It's just connection. So at least these three. Right? The hollowness, change, unfolding, and connection. Right? Suspending the me, I, mine. Suffering transcended. Pain may be still there. Sadness may be still there. You may cry, you may tear, but notion of loss is worthy to examine. Notion of loss. Because what is actually experiencing is this connection. And even the person is no longer with us, if you examine into that loss, you will feel connection. The love continues. You know? The person I love the most. You want to know who the person I love the most? My teacher. He passed away 2009. I still feel very much connected to him. I don't have that many dreams, but when I do, I keep a dream log. I dream of him. Just everyday interactions. Sometimes he says some Buddha Dharma teaching, sometimes it's just some ordinary interactions. And in that dream, I learned with the Dharma. So my experience of him evolves, you see. And my connection with him and his teachings continue to evolve in me. So I continue to understand more aspects of some of his teachings. See? Whether it's him or not, it's probably not him, it's just my mind, right? My connection, you see. So, the latest one was a few days ago. Every few months. I don't make a big deal out of it. It's like, oh, dream my teacher, what does it mean? Doesn't mean anything. But I learned Buddha Dharma, that's the meaning. I learned some teachings. You know. So, okay. Any questions? Yes. Please pass the mic. Turn it on, Noah.
My question is, you talked about sadness several times because loss, you were using that example. And you said, even if you remove I or me, you could still feel sadness. But to me, sadness is an emotion that is intertwined, perhaps irrevocably, with loss. I'm curious about, and loss potentially suffering. So I don't want to get off on sadness in particular, but I thought as an example, if you could just talk a little bit about sadness is something I could still feel, even if I've removed myself.
Excellent question. Thank you for raising that question. Allow me to answer. We still have memories, right? So the history that we've had with the person, it's not like you awaken suddenly. I don't know who you are. I have no feeling towards you. You can still have feelings, and you have memories, and the history is not denied. It's still there. But there's no reification of me, I, mine, my loss. So to you, sadness directly connected to loss, therefore suffering, it need not be loss. Right? Change. Connection. But the memory that you may have, you obviously have strong feelings to this person, right? That may still be there. It's definitely there. It's like saying goodbye. For now. You know, saying goodbye. We'll meet again. Right? Or you'll continue to be inside me. You know, the suffering, it's not necessarily suffering.
So it sounds like you're saying that sadness does not have to equate to suffering.
Yeah.
You can be sad and not suffer.
That's right. And also sadness does not equate loss. Right? Happiness does not necessarily equate gaining something, or success. Right? So that polarity of gain and loss, success and failure. Usually our emotions are entwined. Why is it entwined? Because the self is there. Very strongly. It's a self-referential. So sadness does not necessitate self-referentiality. It could be just that connection, that acknowledgement of saying goodbye. You see? Yeah. There is still the coming together and the and saying goodbye. Yeah. Yeah. So when my teacher passed away, I cried. So he's still, I'm still learning from him. The people in our lives are like that too. We say goodbye, meet again. You know, figuratively, literally, emotionally, in dream, in wake, all kinds of possibilities. That's impermanent. Possibilities. You know? Thank you. Any other question? Yes, there's a microphone. Is it turned on?
When you sit on the cushion and you reduce the normal yak and the rumination, then there's kind of a hollowness. And you meant, if I understand you, you're saying a hollowness of our perception of the Five Skandhas, because we're trying to get the knack of this. Is that
There's a
what
hollowness to the owner.
you're saying?
Ownership.
Hollowness to the me, my, I, mine.
Possessiveness is just this miraculous functioning by themselves. You don't even need yourself to be there. Everything goes fine. Like your memory's not lost. If you need to respond to someone, you just respond. Like you haven't lost your intelligence, right? You're able to respond. Right? There's no need for the me, I, mine there. And thank you for the question. And the me, I, mine, what does it actually do for us? That's another topic. It's a homework assignment for you all. What does it actually do for us? Right? What does it actually do? It actually produces. See, self doesn't really exist, but it has functions. There's actually functions. Right? What are the actual functions? What does it actually do? It always has to have the features of gaining, losing, success, failure, having, lacking, good, bad. It always has the polarities, the fixed. Observe how the self functions. It doesn't do too good. I mean, in some circumstances, they're useful, because if you're running a business, you need success and failure, right? You need to learn from the failure. You need to recognize what needs to be done, right? You need to have gains. You need to minimize the loss. But in terms of our well-being, the gaining and losing can happen, but we're not tethered to it, because everything unfolds in more possible connections. Change. Right? So that flexibility is our true nature. Fixity is the characteristics of selfing and othering. So the hollowness that I talk about is that moment-to-moment freshness, unfolding, and that connection. That connection. Right? Flexible. Right? And the other features of I'm losing, I'm gaining, having, lacking, good, bad, that doesn't seem to play. So that hollowness of that. But so that's on a kind of an explanatory level. But on an experiential level, there's actually also a kind of hollowness that you feel. Right? A kind of hollowness. And it's at peace. But it's vivid, dynamic, connected. It's very hard to explain, that experience of selflessness. Okay, maybe one last question if people have it. Where? Oh. It's for the Zoomers.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. As long as you see a green.
Just talking to it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, first of all, it's a pleasure meeting you. I've never
Yeah.
met you before. So, and I'm probably using the wrong language, but based on tonight, so when you're doing contemplation, so it's not so much an awareness or an attentiveness that's going on at all times. It's more of an isness, of a merging with everything going on. Like you said, you can look at one facet of it, of the solidity and the other
yeah.
aspects of it, or you can take them all. For me, it's I guess the best example I guess I'm trying to use as a question is like if you're out in nature and you can hear all the different sounds.
Yeah.
And you're not so much staying aware 100%. It's more of a merging with what's going on,
it's
right?
not a narrowness
It just is.
of awareness. It's not a narrowness of awareness of this and that. It could be. It's just opening yourself to, in your language, maybe just what is present. Right?
But that mind is engaged, though, to a certain degree.
Yeah, the discursive monologue, talking, chatting
Right.
mind, that's quieted, and you're just experiencing.
So, okay.
Yeah, so that could be. So when you're experiencing the five skandhas, you're just experiencing form, sensation, perception, volition, consciousness. Right?
Okay.
It could be that, or it could be isolated, just solidity, aspect of form, or the fluidity, the movements,
Okay.
or the warmth. You know, it could be small, or it could be just isness.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? Yeah. They could play around with it. Play around with it, to see.
Yeah, I think my problem is I've been trying to stay very alert and aware during meditation, but it seems like you're counterintuitive because the mind is engaged so much with staying so present. But yet, the way I heard you talk, it's more of emergence with everything that's taking place. It's almost like you kind of, not get lost, that's the wrong term, but you kind of get merged with everything going on. You just kind of sweep it. I don't know, it's not so much of this is where language fails.
Yeah.
So I think,
Just experience.
just experience, okay.
Experience.
That's the best way.
Right.
Got it.
Just avail yourself. Experience.
Okay.
Don't try to control. Don't try to
Okay.
change, to fix anything about this. This is wrong, this is right, or blah, 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 blah. Just experiencing what's present.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next talk, I will talk about how the five skandhas themselves are empty. There's no such thing as form. But you just talk about form. There's no such thing as form, sensation, perception, volition, consciousness. First, you've got to build that up, familiarize yourself, really take it in and practice it. Observe that in yourself. Is there anything that falls outside of the five skandhas? Right? Familiarize yourself. And then observe that, contemplate what is actually present. And then next talk, just next month, we'll dismantle the five skandhas himself. It's ultimate freedom. Okay, have a good night.